What's good, YouTube? It's my boy Squiddy back in another video. I want to talk about a couple of decks that I think are actually going to be very, very powerful in the coming month or so, because we're getting the new set Legacy of Destruction, obviously, as well as a new ban list. So there are some new cards coming out, and there's some things that we can kind of gauge about the upcoming metagame. So let's just dive in. At the top, the deck that I think is going to be decently relevant is actually Melodious. So this is a newer deck. Well, it's a new support for existing old deck that are basically these weird sound like musical creatures that have basically the worst effects in the history of the modern Yu-Gi-Oh game. However, they're getting some new cards that are actually quite good. Now, I haven't actually read everything, but I know these guys are very, very powerful. They did actually have a support card that's existing called First Movement Solo that allows you to special summon a level 4 or lower Melodious from your hand or your deck. So already having a free E-Telly that does not negate the monster effect it summons is really, really busted. It does lock you into Melodious, but these new guys are actually somewhat powerful. I still have to read all of their effects to know exactly how they work, but I know in the OCG they're already doing very, very well, and they have actually topped a couple of tournaments here and there. So these guys are something to keep note of on the horizon. They're getting a bunch of new support in the new set, and from what I've gathered so far, just by taking a look at their effects, they're actually somewhat relevant. Like Melodious Concerto allows you to fusion summon a fairy monster from your extra deck using your Pendulum Zone. So that's very, very interesting. And then it allows you to even draw a card when a Melodious Fusion monster is sent to your graveyard. So there's a lot of recursion with these guys, and they all have some unique effects, including pendulums as well as the monster effect. So this is something that could be somewhat on the horizon. I don't think a lot of people are talking about them, but I definitely think that's something that you guys should definitely investigate. Next is another deck that we have seen be a nuisance in the metagame throughout the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's been around. We have a lot of existing support for this deck, and that's LIGHTSWORN. So yes, we're getting some new LIGHTSWORN. Obviously, there's a lot of hype revolving around this deck. Now, I don't think the deck is super, super good just because it's a little bit outdated, but the new cards are somewhat decent. Dragon of LIGHTSWORN allows you to actually search for a Judgment Dragon directly from your deck if he's milled. So that's just like, what the heck? Really, really cool there. And obviously, he has another effect where you can just special summon them from your hand if you control a LIGHTSWORN monster in your graveyard, or rather just have it there. We have a retrain of Snow Whis, the LIGHTSWORN Archfiend. So yes, this is actually apparently something that we can see on some of the existing Yu-Gi-Oh card lore, like Dark Smog, where RAIKA was initially lured in by Grapha to become a TwilightSworn, but it seems that Snow herself actually becomes a LIGHTSWORN after the fact by saving RAIKA and leading him back to the light world, I guess. So these guys are actually in the same universe, which was a little bit surprising for me. And it's really, really interesting to see that on Dark World Puppetry, you can actually see Snow is leading RAIKA back out of the Dark World using the Gateway of the Dark World. So this card is actually not that bad either. It allows you to basically place a dead LIGHTSWORN card on the top of your deck and then special summon itself. I know the deck has a lot of new cool support coming out, including a fusion monster as well, and a powerful retrain of Minerva called Minerva LIGHTSWORN Athena. Whether or not they'll be meta relevant leaves to be said, I guess, you know, after the new ban list and after we get all the support and everything kind of settles. But from what I've seen, they're somewhat playable, and I know a lot of TCG players will be actually on the LIGHTSWORN Copium, and they're going to want to try the deck again. So this is definitely something that could come up in the metagame, maybe on the regional or local level. So yeah, this is another thing that I think would definitely be good. So guys, pick up your LIGHTSWORN cards if you haven't already. Next is a bit of a derpy deck, but the Gold Prides are actually getting two new support cards in the form of Gold Pride Assassinator, who is a level 5 machine tuner monster who allows you to special summon himself from your hand where you have less life points in your opponent, so a lot like how the other Gold Prides have traditionally worked. And then it also allows you to actually banish a Gold Pride from your hand, field, or graveyard to special summon a Gold Pride token with the same level as a banished monster, and then from there you can easily synchro summon into the new Gold Pride Annihilator, who allows you to actually target up to 2 of your opponent's Synchro Xyz, Link, or Fusion monsters and destroy them as a quick effect. So very, very nice applications there. Now, we already know that Gold Pride was somewhat relevant about, you know, a year and a half ago or so. with the existing stuff, the punk support, obviously taking advantage of emergency teleport as well. So yeah, at the end of the day, I think these guys will definitely be played. I don't think they'll be super meta relevant, but it's possible they can be like a row kind of tier 2.5, tier 3-ish deck that can still do well enough to top regionals. So expect to see them. And this is just something you can practice with and toy around with. The good prides are something that I just loved seeing how they're very unique. You know, having less life points than your opponent is a game mechanic is really, really amusing. So that's another deck I think will be somewhat relevant. Moving on is a newer archetype in Lido, and that's actually the RAIKAs. So these are a mixture of insects, reptiles, and also plant monsters that are very link-based, and they allow you to do some cool things. Their main starter, RAIKA no Marukobi, allows you to add 2 RAIKA cards with different names from your deck or your banishment to your hand, and you can obviously special summon it off of Lone Fire Blossom. So this is just really, really cool how this is like a plant, insect / reptile based deck that allows you to link climb into these huge, powerful links that all have unique effects, and they're really, really cool. Allow you to special summon guys back from your graveyard, and allow you to banish stuff and make use of your banish pile. They're just really, really neat, and I would love to see this deck actually be somewhat competitive, but I'm not really sure they are. Just by looking at the OCG right now, it doesn't seem like they're really doing a lot, but they're really, really cool, and I wouldn't be surprised if these guys actually get more support and they actually do become meta relevant, because their effects are already quite decent if you compare them one-to-one to existing power creep. I think these guys are definitely something you should keep an eye on, because sooner or later they'll probably be playable. They're very, very interesting, and they're really like based off of old Japanese folklore, I think. And I just love like that kind of like the samurais and like the cool machines and the weird plants and all that jazz. So this is another deck that you guys should have on your radar for the horizon. Moving on is, well, existing decks. Okay, Snake Eyes. I don't think they're going anywhere. Like, yes, the ban list is coming up, but do you really think Konami is going to screw $2,000 paying players out of their wallets after they just spent their entire wallet on the deck? Especially when we're getting new Snake Eyes stuff in the form of Snake Eyes YUBEL Star, which is a card that can be searched off of Wanted as well. Yep, Wanted allows you to add any YUBEL Star monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, so we're not even looking at just activating it to add Black Witch anymore. Nope, you can actually add Snake Eyes YUBEL Star, which is a huge, ginormous version of Poplar. And I really don't think they're going to hit this deck that hard. It'll probably be a slap on the wrist, like Snake Eye Ash to 2 type deal. And I don't think they're going to hit Wanted. So for me, this deck is still going to be around to stay, at least for National Season, albeit at a watered down status, but still very, very potent enough to be tier 1 status after the ban list. So if you guys don't believe me, just wait to see. I'm pretty convinced that this will be what happens. The deck will still be around, and with the new support, I think it'll just get better. And then another deck that's going to be sticking around is Voiceless. We are getting Blessing of the Voiceless Voice, which is another continuous spell card that Lo can actually place on the table. And this card allows you to actually add a banished or a graveyard Voiceless Voice card. It can be any card. It doesn't have to be necessarily the monster. So you can actually add back the continuous traps and all the other spells like the ritual spell, or potentially the barrier as well. So these are all cards that you can all target and recycle. We had the issue where once Radiance was gone, you could not recycle it in the existing deck because you only play one, being a trap, but now you can add it back with Blessing in the grind game. And Blessing also allows you to actually ritual summon a monster when a non-ritual monster is normal or special summoned. So if your opponent normal summons a card, you can actually use the effect of Blessings to potentially summon out a Skull Guardian from your hand. Say your opponent like Veiler the Low for whatever reason and you're not able to summon. Well, having Blessings now allows you to use that on your opponent's turn, so you do get some interruption out of there and you get some value immediately. So it's really, really nice one-up card that I think will slot nicely into the deck, and the deck will definitely be somewhat relevant still because we already know it's good, right? Next, let's talk about some existing TCG exclusive decks. Well, Ashened is a new support deck that came out in the recent set, and obviously it was very, very overhyped and not very powerful in the meta-relevant department. But that being said, I think these guys will actually receive a plethora of new support. We saw what happened with Gold Pride. We got a new support in the second wave that are actually somewhat relevant. That being said, even if the deck is not meta-relevant, I think Vados will still be a very, very popular side deck option just because of so many field spell reliant decks are coming out. We have YUBELs, we have the gimmick puppets that are coming out after that, and there's just so much to do with field spells. Vados is a really, really nice hand trap to stop field spells, but also pose a liability to your opponent's board, because when you remove it, it Raigekis their entire board, or Dark Holes rather. So it's just really, really nice that this card allows you to have the option to kind of counter the metagame. I think it might be somewhat relevant depending on what we get. What we'll find out. And then next is an existing meme deck slash archetype that's been around and a fan favorite of, you know, Jaden Yuki and hero fans from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Yes, the YUBEL guys are actually getting some new support. Inferno Grave Squirmer is a free fiend extender, allows you to special summon itself from your hand as a quick effect, and then you can actually destroy a monster that's YUBEL. And you can also banish it from your graveyard to special summon back a fiend monster with 0 attack or defense from your graveyard. So it's just really, really nice. And we're getting a broken field spell called Nightmare Throne that allows you to add a fiend monster with 0 attack and defense from your deck to your hand and either destroy it if it's YUBEL, or you can also add other things that are really, really cool, like the Sacred Beast guy. What was that guy's name? You can obviously add Dark Beckoning Beast, which is really nice because it's a fiend with 0 attack and defense. And this deck actually goes quite hard, especially when you pair it with the Unchained stuff. Because being fiends that spam the table, you can obviously go into Unchained Soul, Lord of Yama quite easily. Search your one copy of Shavara, and then from there, just like set Escape and start playing. So this deck actually was somewhat relevant in the OCG even before they got their Broken Fusion exclusive. And I think it might actually be decent in the TCG as a rogue deck because it has a lot of application. The power level of the deck is very, very good. We have a lot of great extenders and searchers. All these cards are somewhat decent. Obviously, YUBEL is a bit of a brick, but you don't have to max out on it, and you have multiple ways to pop it. So I'm excited to see like Unchained slash YUBEL actually make an impact in the metagame. And I think it's definitely something you guys should look into as we get more and more support, including that fusion monster eventually. Then the deck just gets better and better. Hey guys, before we dive in, I actually wanted to share with you a product that I'm actually selling. Yes, a bit of a shameless plug, but what you're seeing on screen is SQUIDDY'S Masterclass. So these are going to be a series of guides that go very in-depth for a particular deck. And this one that I've completed so far is the Snake Eyes Fire King. You can see here we talk about deck building, going into the optimal end boards, playing into hand traps. So basically every hand trap where you get hand trapped at a certain choke point we're going to talk about, and some general tips about the deck. We go very, very detailed. We included a bunch of replays from Dueling Book actually embedded here, so when you get hand trapped at a certain location, what you're supposed to do to adapt, and then the best ways that you can actually play into those hand traps. So this is actually available now. The full slides are actually over 60 slides alongside a 3-hour recording of myself actually going over these slides and just talking about the plays and the deck in general. So if you guys want to up your competitive game as a Fire King Snake Eye player, or just learn how to beat the deck, this is definitely a good resource for you, I would say. So I'm pricing this at $20 USD, which is a little steep, but I guarantee you guys there's lots of value in this, and the payment allows me to spend time on this and actually bring you guys more meta relevant content and bring it to you at a high competitive level. So if you guys are interested, there's a link below in the description. Now that being said, I will definitely be still making a lot of free stuff on YouTube, talking about a lot of decks in here and there, but if you guys want exclusive content that's very, very detailed, then this is definitely something you guys can check out. Other than that, let's dive back into this video. Thanks a lot for taking the time to listen to this. And then last but not least, yes, you guys already know this deck is going to be good because we've seen in the OCG the TENPAI dragons. These guys are very, very battle phase reliant. They synchro summon in the battle phase and deal whopping upwards of 33,000 damage in tandem with the Trident Dragon, who can attack multiple times. And it's basically a Trident Dragon archetype because, yeah, I mean, these guys are just very, very aggressive and hard to deal with. They have a broken field spell that prevents their monsters from being affected by activated card effects and also allows them to add their engine pieces to start. So there's a lot of cool cards coming out for these guys, and I'm very scared of this deck because it's battle phase reliant. Battle phase effects have traditionally been awful in Yu-Gi-Oh, but now these guys can play in the battle phase and also play cards like Heat Wave to lock you down completely so you pass with no monsters and then they just OTK you. So this is the type of deck that I really like the playstyle. It's kind of changing from a traditional playstyle, you know, the combo decks and stuff we have. This is very, very gimmicky in that it relies on one phase, but it's gimmicky in a good way and it still makes it competitive. So I really want to see more decks like this. Guys, that's all the decks that I had for today that I think are going to be on the radar that you should keep an eye out. Are there any decks that we missed out on or any decks that you think will be good or viable? Let me know in the comments below. Other than that, please like this video, smash that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.